wrote this thing about your performance this morning, and trying to get discussions going about that very, very rare, but when it's good, is that the really sublime, low-key, minimal expression, and yet obviously much being expressed, but not overtly. And my favorite performances in this vein are largely in the tough guy, like particularly John Hurt in The Hit, the Stephen Frears. You know what I'm talking about?
I do. I know exactly what you're talking about.
I mean, he doesn't do anything.
No.
He has the shades on the whole time.
Yeah, he makes the guy jump off the balcony. I remember. It's that wonderful scene where he stops
in Madrid.
Yeah, he just pays a visit to the guy, and they show him looking scared on the balcony, and then back to John Hurt, and then back and he's gone.
Yeah.
And then I remember Tim Roth.
That was the first thing I remember him.
He gets killed suddenly, doesn't he? And then, Terence Stamp just loses his cool completely. He's all beatific about his oncoming death, but he's not quite ready at the moment.
Yeah, when it actually happens.
Right. It's a great film.
Yeah. Invoking John Lennon.
Paul Schofield in Man for All Seasons, going back a little further, he had an extraordinary quiet integrity in that film. And again, very little real demonstration going on. And I've always been fascinated by the quality of inner life in actors, much more so than by the pyrotechnics. And that was where it really came home to me. And I had a drama teacher, he was probably in his 70s by the time I was there. He was brilliant, a Swedish, originally dance teacher called Yat. We used to talk about inner life constantly, and he would make us go and see plays around London and send the students just to observe that. He would send us to see actors just to see that they had no inner life. And there was a famous actress getting a lot of awards at that time that we were told to study because he said she has no inner life whatsoever. She's doing all the right things. It's quite extraordinary. Her movements, her facial expressions, everything's beautifully judged, but there's nothing there. And so I was sort of weaned on that idea.
Do you think that was what Tom Ford saw in you and why you liked the idea? Because you were particularly, known for that undercurrent without making a big...
You'd have to ask him. He said something along those lines. I mean, obviously, if that's what interests me and that's what interested him is about actors, and he picked me, then hopefully we were looking for the same thing, yes. I love the fact that he finds the human face cinematically so interesting, as do I. I mean, I'd much rather watch a face for a 10-minute uncut take than panning across whatever landscape we're looking at, or whatever complexity of composition a director has found. Now, those things are incredibly powerful in the visual medium as well. I'm not saying cinema should only be about talking heads. Nevertheless, that's where the most powerful cinema, as far as I'm concerned, keeps coming back. It's back to the face.
I was struck by something that I heard Sidney Lumet say on actually someone said that he said it on this making of thing for 12 Angry Men, and he had told one of the actors, I think it was Henry Fonda or something, that audiences always can read an actor's mind. They can always see what's going on. Is that a common thing that you hear in acting class? Do people say that a lot? Or?
Well, acting class, when I was training, didn't discuss film at all. I mean, we would see films and be told to watch films, but we weren't trained for the camera. And people argue over how similar the craft of acting on stage and is to the craft of acting on film. Some people say it's the same job, you just have to fine-tune a few things. Some people say they're completely different. I think the truth slips around between those two poles. But I do have to say that whether people are conscious or not of knowing that the eyes are lying, they do know. They may not put that together in their mind, but if they're watching something and if you're watching a film and you're watching an actor and you start to glaze over, or you tense up, or you resist them, or something about what they're doing jars, it is as likely as not, because it's just not really truthful. And you can't quite nail it. You know, they might be, again, like the actress I spoke about, they might be doing all the right things, but if something's not, it's a very, very, it's not an easy commodity to identify or to harness. But I think most people have an antenna for it, and I have it with politicians. It's not just actors. When you see somebody giving an interview, or making a speech on the podium, I get an immediate visceral response, according to whether I think they're basically sincere or not. Now, politicians, whether they are sincere or not, do still have to dress things up. They've got a rhetorical style. They've got the party line that they have to toe. That there are often a lot of things that they're saying that they don't really want to say, even if they're basically genuine. But that basic sincerity is detectable, and the lack of it is very, very conspicuous as well. And you learn as an actor, I think, to look at what Yad, an old teacher, used to call shadow moves. And that can be this nervousness in the hands. You know, a perfectly composed lie where the face it seems to be completely relaxed. The legs just, you know, it can be a little finger. It can be scratching. You know, Margaret Thatcher is a wonderful person to study from this point of view, because she was thought to be a great communicator, a great, rhetorical actress. I think she's one of the worst actresses I've ever seen. I mean, I think it's abominable. It's toe-curlingly and really painfully hard to listen to and watch. Except when she was in incredibly belligerent mode. If she was talking war, she was pretty convincing.
Falklands?
Yeah. When she was on the warpath, either against the Falklands or against the miners, which are two of the biggest issues during that period, then you could sort of see the power. Right. But when she went into her compassionate mode, and doing her, we really, really care, that's when it became hideously unconvincing. And you see people, I think it all is that same ability that I think most people have on one level or another to detect the truthfulness.
You find Barack Obama convincing?
Yes. Well, I do. I think he's basically, I suspect that he is, I think he's a shrewd man. I think he's a very deft operator. And a skilled diplomat, but I sense that the rhetoric has its heart where I would want it to be. I mean, we're all politically have a different centre of gravity, but as far as I'm concerned, yes, I believe he's genuine.
Just had this thought about a famous thing that John Ford, I believe, said at one time, that directors essentially make the same film over and over again. And they'll, reach a certain point in their life when they make it better than they've ever made it before, and that tends to be the one that people get all excited about. Could one hypothesize that actors essentially deliver the same performance in the same light? I mean, that when they hit the right time and the right performance, as I believe you have with this thing, that
we'll see. Maybe every artist. I'm not saying artist. Calling